I think the market is pretty healthy. It showed resilience in the face of higher oil, higher yields. But I also think the U.S. is pretty unique because we do have a structural driver for the economy, which is not only is the U.S. the producer of AI, but we are also relatively energy independent, and that's been exposed by this war. And the consumer's in pretty good shape. So, I mean, I think there is a pretty good runway. So I'd agree with the idea that stocks, compared to the start of this year, have more upside into year end.
It does seem that the economy is picking up some steam, but mostly in the manufacturing sector. There seems to be a bit of a breakout in the PMI, manufacturing. And if you were looking at a stock, you'd be saying, oh my gosh, that is a 25-year breakout. And that really is what this is. It's a technology revolution.
Are we on the verge of a 25-year market breakout, or is an economic shock about to wreck the story? According to Fundstrat's Tom Lee, the U.S. economy has a massive structural driver. Between explosive AI productivity and a multi-trillion-dollar wealth wave from massive upcoming tech IPOs, stocks have an incredible runway into year-end. But ARK Invest's Cathie Wood is looking at a completely different catalyst. She reveals we're in a profound technology revolution, a winner-take-most environment where AI is creating the most inefficiently priced, massive opportunities in stock market history. Here is what's next. Before we go on, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more content like this. Every action helps with the YouTube algorithm and greatly supports the channel's growth. Thanks for your support and enjoy the video.
All the AI stuff's now out of the way. We're looking at yields, we're looking at oil, we're looking at the Middle East, but how do you feel about this market when you just heard Chris Harvey at the top of our show saying we're going to have an everything rally that's going to take us past 8,000 by the end of the year?
Yeah, Scott, I think the market is pretty healthy. It showed resilience in the face of higher oil, higher yields. But I also think the U.S. is pretty unique because we do have a structural driver for the economy, which is not only is the U.S. the producer of AI, but we are also relatively energy independent, and that's been exposed by this war. And the consumer's in pretty good shape. So, I mean, I think there is a pretty good runway. So I'd agree with the idea that stocks, compared to the start of this year, have more upside into year end. We've got a few things we have to work through as we get later through the year, but I think for now the fundamentals are healthy, and that's supported by earnings.
I don't know what shape the consumer's in, to be honest with you. I mean, I understand the K-shaped economy, obviously. Top of the K is better than the bottom of the K in terms of the durability to keep spending. But you listen to Walmart, which was pretty cautious, and you're like, what is the real state of the consumer? And if oil prices remain elevated for too long, is that the thing that wrecks the story?
Scott, yeah, it is, in a way it is K-shaped, because if I had to say, okay, what are the things that are sort of ballast and things moving the consumer, of course we know that it's higher gasoline, higher food, and of course there's going to be a shortage of some petroleum products. But on the other end of that spectrum is, the wealth that's going to be created by the IPO, SpaceX, OpenAI, et cetera. I mean, that's several $1 trillion worth. And as we know, there's like a marginal propensity to consume from the wealth effect. So I think the consumer's getting a tailwind later this year, but a lot of it is for those who own equity.
I mean, a tailwind from owning the IPOs?
Well, it's actually the private investors. As we know, SpaceX was probably seeded at, $50 million. It probably raised, tens of billions over the last decade. But now it's going to have a net worth valuation of around 1.7 trillion. So that's actually now going to be monetized for the LPs of the funds that invested in SpaceX. So they're, several $1 trillion is quite a lot of stimulus to the economy.
Wow. Okay. Hampton's real estate market. Watch out. AI trade. How do you feel about it after NVIDIA?
I mean, a company with the size of revenues, NVIDIA, growing at 8%, I think shows that there is still, unrelenting demand for the product NVIDIA sells. And then we know that those who are starting to use AI are actually noticing a gain of function on productivity. Ken Griffin really stated it well when he says he could see it's replacing a lot of analysts. So to me, I think not only are the users of AI benefiting, but there's still a shortage of those who are supplying the equipment.
Tom Lee's perspective reflects a larger shift in how many macro investors are beginning to interpret the current cycle. Rather than viewing higher yields, geopolitical tension, and inflation as signals of inevitable weakness, he sees them as stress tests that the market has already survived. Beneath the volatility, he believes a more powerful story is unfolding, one centered on America's dominance in artificial intelligence, structural economic advantages, and a new era of productivity-driven growth. Cathie Wood presents a radically different interpretation of what is unfolding beneath the surface of the global economy. While many analysts remain focused on traditional inflation fears, cyclical slowdowns, and monetary policy uncertainty, Wood argues that the world is entering the early stages of a profound technological transformation, one powerful enough to reshape productivity, manufacturing, healthcare, financial markets, and even the structure of investment research itself.
It does seem that the economy is picking up some steam, but mostly in the manufacturing sector. There seems to be a bit of a breakout in the PMI, manufacturing. And I think one of the most interesting charts that we showed on the webinar was non-defense capital goods orders ex aircraft. And if you look at that chart, what you'll see is that since the tech and telecom bust, it seemed to peak and give way at the same place over these last 25 years. But this time is different, truly different. And you look at that chart, it looks as though, I mean, if you were looking at a stock, you'd be saying, oh my gosh, that is a 25-year breakout. And that really is what this is. It's a technology revolution. And I think that chart speaks loudly. On inflation, the dynamic there is the PPI is heating up, actually quite a bit. Commodity prices, energy prices, of course, Iran a part of that. But I do think there's a supply-demand imbalance as companies have kept materials very low. Pricing wasn't going anywhere for a long time after we got over the COVID shock. But now they're seeing activity surprise on the high side of expectation, certainly in the manufacturing sector. And so we're seeing a price signal. This is not necessarily inflation. It's a price signal. That's how we're interpreting it. And the reason we say it's not inflationary is what we're seeing at the consumer price level. Consumer price inflation, if you believe TrueFlation, is resolving to the downside. In fact, core TrueFlation is at 1%. Now, that's not what the CPI says yet, but TrueFlation, and you'll see it in the chart, TrueFlation is it's measuring tens of thousands of goods and services real time, 24/7, and gives us a daily read. And it has been consistently around 1% for core and 2% for headline consumer inflation. So what does this mean? It means that consumer margins are probably getting hit here, because the consumer is basically saying, we're not paying up. We will substitute into other goods and services if you try and raise prices on us from here. And so that's another interesting phenomenon going on. Another thing is interest rates. We have been saying that we expected an interest rate decline as inflation surprises to the downside of expectations. But now we are seeing the rolling recession, you've heard me talk about this before, move into a rolling recovery, starting with manufacturing, a little more significantly and perhaps sooner than we expected. And you can see some of that from the charts, not only the PMI, but there's some trucking data that's pretty provocative out there. And then in terms of earnings, it does look like, at least generally, there may be some consumer margin hits that will surprise during the next few months. But so far, from what we can see from first quarter reports, earnings growth and revenue growth are quite strong. We looked at the Qs this morning, the earnings and sales growth metrics there. Sales are up roughly 16.5%. Earnings are up in the low 30% range. Those are good numbers and explain why the market is continuing to climb. In terms of our own fund, our flagship fund, ARKK, the sales growth number is in the low 20s, and the earnings growth number is roughly 60%. Again, with roughly 75% of all earnings out for both the Qs and for ARK. So it's interesting to see that our performance is lagging the Qs and the S&P after a big relative year. We think there's some indigestion associated with cryptocurrencies still, but it looks like they are basing, and when the Clarity Act passes, and we do hope that the Trump administration gets what it wants July 4th, before July 4th. Many people think it'll be in August, but we think that the market will start discounting that. It does seem like we're getting more clarity on the Clarity legislation going through. And the multiomics names are still struggling. But as we've said many times in the past, the evidence that something very big is going on, meaning the most profound application of AI in terms of cutting the cost and time to discover and develop new drugs, introducing diagnostics that are able to diagnose disease much earlier than has been the case thus far, and actual cures to disease, which many times now CRISPR Therapeutics is number 2 or number 3 in the portfolio. Its revenue generation from curing sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia is starting to ramp now. And with that will come earnings. So we believe truth will win out in those two spaces, and we do think that will happen this year. Maybe the genesis of the question is the COVID crisis, because we learned that supply shock really did slow everything down, but it shut down the world, from a unit growth. And then when the monetary and fiscal authorities around the world started throwing money at the problem, the supply shock lasted for 3 years. This is very different. This is very different from that. And, the boom bust that, high growth companies saw around that period was because the supply shock lasted so long. So unit growth was very, very disappointing. We don't think this is going to be the case. This is not a supply shock in that sense of the word. The Iran war and oil prices, I think what that's highlighting now is that U.S. exports of oil have gone from essentially nothing in 2015 to 6 million barrels per day. The U.S. is a net beneficiary of what's going on right now. We know that affordability is an issue, but on the other hand, tax refunds for individuals are covering for the oil prices, at least up to now. The refunds probably are reaching their end. So we're probably going to get more drama around the affordability issue. Our sense is that the Iran war is coming to a conclusion, and that, by the midterm elections, which certainly this administration hopes, the oil prices will have reversed dramatically. And I think many investors in our industry, when they hear the word diagnostics, they think about commoditization, because that's where the old world has been for a long time. But now with artificial intelligence, now that we actually have the science and can surface mutations very specifically, this changes the game. And I do think there's a little bit of a winner take most opportunity here. I sometimes think they're building an information backbone here in the United States, certainly, that no one else will have. And proprietary data is the name of the game, especially in healthcare and AI. The other thing I'll say, and this is actually zooming out a bit, I think what Ovid described is true across the innovation space generally, because of the way that research is set up, is organized in the traditional world. In traditional asset management, research analyst responsibilities are organized by sector or industry or sub-industry. That is not how we've organized our team. Our teams have been organized by technology, and technologies that we believe are going to scale across sectors, industries, and so forth. So I think in the new world, you're going to need that kind of research in order to capitalize on some of the massive opportunities that are evolving, first identifying them and then capitalizing on them. And then the last thing I'll say, and it is, throughout my career, I've seen, healthcare analysts, again, this is by sector, and technology analysts. Neither is comfortable playing in the other's sector. In fact, they're quite uncomfortable, tech investors, as Ovid mentioned, because of regulation, politics, reimbursement, and bureaucracy in healthcare. And healthcare players, because moving fast and breaking things doesn't sound like such a good idea in a highly regulated, politicized environment. So that's why I think this space is the most inefficiently priced space in the market.
Cathie Wood's macro thesis ultimately rests on a single overarching idea. The world is entering a technological supercycle powerful enough to reshape economic growth, inflation dynamics, healthcare, manufacturing, and capital markets simultaneously. To skeptics, today's environment still looks dominated by inflation risk, geopolitical instability, and economic uncertainty. But Wood argues those forces are increasingly being overshadowed by something larger, an innovation-driven transformation capable of accelerating productivity while reducing costs across entire industries. If her thesis proves correct, the next decade may not simply represent another economic cycle. It may mark the emergence of a fundamentally new economic architecture, powered by artificial intelligence, genomic medicine, advanced manufacturing, and the convergence of technologies that traditional markets still struggle to fully understand.